What's up, everybody? RobLive. Summer is here. Jim, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, man. It's been a long... We're coming down to the end of school, right?
Yes, we are. For those who don't know, we're both educators. Sierra Pacific High School, the Golden Bears. And, of course, Jim, give a shout-out.
Liberty Hawks.
The Hawks of Liberty.
Liberty Hawks,
Madera
yep.
Ranchos. So, guys, keeping in alignment with the education theme, we have some heavy hitters coming in the house today. And we're very excited to have them. I've had a privilege of meeting some amazing people over the last year. And sometimes when you meet that right person, they become your connector, the tipping point, the one that kind of guides you to a whole different table of individuals that you get to talk to. And so since I get to speak with them, so do you guys as audience members. Please get out your pens and pencils, take notes. You want to know about educational leadership, then you need to be here today with RobLive. Before we get into that, though, Rob has his own thing going on, right, Jim?
Yep.
Jim bought a copy.
You should be proud, man. You should be really
very
proud
of
that.
this.
Move
It is
back.
called
Move-
the
move-
8
move that
Leadership
bag.
Styles That Empower, right? This is myself and 25 other amazing authors and speakers giving a little insight on leadership. And
Put it right there on your desk. Move
like that? Let's set it up.
Move
Yeah.
that bag. Move that bag.
There
right
you go.
There.
Let's get this red licorice.
Yeah, all right.
Cavities
There you
out of
go.
the way.
Nice.
So with that in mind, guys, we have a big election coming up here in the Central Valley. As you guys know, we're in the Central Valley. Shout out to everywhere else, but we happen to be based out of the California Central Valley. And we have a very large area of schools in our area. And one of those counties is Fresno County. And so we have some candidates who are running for Fresno County Superintendent of Schools on the upcoming election, and we want to share some insight and get to know these amazing individuals. I had a chance to go to an awards banquet for Dr. Saul Salinas and let me make sure I said this right, the Mexican American Educators, AME, organization. And he strategically, this guy's all about strategy. I'm getting catching on. He accidentally sits me next to this like amazing leader to my left who I got to know very well, Dr. I almost messed it up. I'm going to get it right. Dr. Eimear O'Brien in the house.
Thank you.
Yes,
and you got it right. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So I'm getting educated on this whole position, right? So when you talk about, let's put Jim on the spot. Real quick, Jim. Superintendent of Schools, Fresno County. What did they do? Who did they lead?
Oh man, don't even put me there. I could really focus on what's going on in my own classroom. So let alone, they do a lot. I know they do a lot.
So we're going to start with a definition, and if you would please correct this. So here's what we have. All right, Chat GPT. Let's see if you got this right. The Fresno County Superintendent of Schools is basically the county's top public education leader and support office for local schools. So here's a list of what they do. They help schools. They make sure schools follow California education laws. They help train teachers, principals, and staff. They watch over school budgets and step in if a district's having some struggles. They work with community groups, families, and local leaders. They run county education programs like career training, alternative schools, support services, and also are advocates, I like this one, for all students. So they have fair opportunities to succeed in school. In summation, the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools helps local schools succeed, support students and teachers, and make sure education programs across the county are running properly. Is this accurate?
It's pretty accurate. What I would say is we have 31 school districts, and each of them has their own district superintendent. I myself was a district superintendent in Clovis Unified, and I actually was over in Central for a short time as an interim superintendent. So each of them has their own district superintendent who is appointed by the locally elected governing board for that school district. And that's when we talk about local control. That locally elected school board really does work very closely with their district superintendent to determine what the goals are for the next year, what academic goals, what the goals are around the budget and all sorts of things, you know, if they're expanding their facilities in their district and things like that. And so really, what to me, the county superintendent is there to help the district superintendent fulfill their goals. Now, a lot of our smaller districts lack the resources and the capacity to you know, have all of the resources that they need to do that. And so they can lean a little more heavily on the county superintendent to help as needed to fulfill their goals. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. I was all educated. This is like a, what do they call it? Cram course? On
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah.
I'm just like,
There's
what?
a lot of misunderstanding around what the
Yes.
county superintendent does. Yeah.
And that's exactly why I think this episode is going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
I think there's also a lot of misunderstanding about how the position is acquired. For example, in Hanford, I believe, Saul probably knows more than I do. I believe they're appointed or voted on by the school board for us, our superintendent.
Well,
No.
yeah.
I know there's not like a full-on
There's
election.
some that are like the elected officials.
Yeah.
There's some that are appointed by the same way you would appoint a superintendent through a board and an interview
So it
process.
varies.
Yeah, it varies.
Okay. So, because I was very surprised to realize that this was an elected position.
Yeah, out of the 58 counties in California, 53 are elected positions.
Oh,
there
wow.
are 5 that the county school board appoints. So I know San Diego's one, I know Santa Clara's one, I should know the other 3, but anyway,
Okay.
there's 3 more as well, yeah.
And that election is occurring in June. Is that correct?
And so that election is occurring on June 2nd, yes.
3 candidates.
3 candidates. We have the incumbent and then myself and another candidate.
Awesome. So we have some questions for you.
Great.
And so we're going to go through these. Rarely, Jim, can you imagine I have notes today?
I'm
This-
impressed. Yes.
This is misleading, by
Yeah.
the way. I never have notes, right? But I wanted to get this right. And I wanted to make sure we asked the right questions because it's an important position.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with our first one. What inspired you to pursue a career in education and what led you to run for this position?
Well, originally what inspired me to pursue a career in education is that I love kids. I don't know, I just love everything about kids. I love being with them. I love listening to them. I love, and more than anything, I love teaching kids. I love seeing them learn and I love seeing them being successful. So I wanted my career to be involved with seeing, that light bulb go off in kids' minds. And so I was a teacher for 20 years and I loved
Wow.
every minute of it. I taught young kids how to read, and I also taught the foundations of mathematics. So I did a 10-year stint in Ireland, and then I taught here in Fresno area for 10 years also. And then what led me to running for this position, I think, again, it goes back to loving kids. I care deeply about the fact that we have over half our kids not able to read. And it's also, I'm running out of a sense also of frustration, because the science of reading, which is how I always taught reading for 20 years, we did move away from it in the United States for the last 3 decades. It's the whole thing, but I don't know why we did that. But the science of reading stipulates that 95% of kids will learn to read. I always had all my kids reading. And my first 10 years, I was teaching students who were learning 2 languages. So it's a source of frustration to me to see that over half our kids aren't learning. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and I've identified what they are. And we need a leader who can help us, help see us through. There's a lot of, there's a new law in the state. I won't get into that right now, but we should be able to get 95% of our kids reading. And I believe
Amen.
we can, and that's what's motivating me to run, because I want to get us there.
I love that goal. So what experience in your own education or career have most shaped the way you lead and support students, teachers, and families?
I think, as a teacher, as a school site principal at the elementary and the high school, and as a...
You've been at all the levels.
Yes, I have, yeah.
I love
I've
that.
had a lot of
I love that.
different positions.
Can I just say something real
Assistant
quick as a
principal and
teacher, and Jim will kind of vouch for me on this one, I think. When we look at our leaders, right, and the ladder and the steps up, we always want to know, have they been in a classroom?
Yeah.
Right? It's one thing to read about classrooms and to be a witness, but actually running your own classroom, right, is when you get that clarity of obstacles. I feel like it's a good foundation.
Well, you're right, Rob, because I think that's what helped me be a successful principal, because I had been a teacher for 20 years.
You knew.
I sometimes used to say, oh gosh, we can't pile something else on their plate right now. They've got report cards going, they've got mid-year this and all sorts of things going on. And I would say, let's hold off for another week or two, because I had been in that boat, and I know how hard teachers work, and I know certain times of the year are very, very heavy the workload is more heavy than normal. And so I think having been a teacher for 20 years, it helped me to be successful as a principal. And it boils down to treating people well. You know, I always wanted to be the leader. I used to tell my teachers, and later on my leaders under me, I like to surround myself with people who tell me not what they think I want to hear, but what I need to hear. Ooh. And it really created an environment of trust everywhere I was. And when you have an environment of trust, you can get real work done because people feel empowered to say what the real issue is, and they're not afraid to challenge. I used to say, tell me, sit down and tell me if you think I'm doing something wrong. I want to hear it. I'm not afraid to hear it.
I've heard that about you.
Right, yeah, I'm actually big on it, to be honest.
No,
Which is why
that.
Saul Salinas and I are such good friends because, yeah, he had to tell me a lot of things that weren't going right over the years. And it created a space of trust so we could get real work done.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, that's okay. That's in alignment with what I heard.
It's interesting you say that because as an educator myself, it's really kind of, I wouldn't say it's you or anyone else, but it's almost intimidating to know like my little problem is not even in your perspective as far as handling it. But if there's so many of those little problems that are causing me to teach differently or inaccurately in class, it becomes a bigger problem. And so it's interesting how you have just people that just an open door policy, just being able to come and talk to anybody individually as human beings, saying, and you have that aspect of it, you know, and the expertise behind it.
You know, you're right. Actually, Jim, also as a principal and even later on as a district superintendent, I was out in my car. When I was a principal, I was out in classrooms, going in, checking on teachers. Kids knew that I was coming by. If somebody was having a little hard time regulating themselves that day, I would pull them out and have a little chat with them. And my teachers felt supported. And then when I became a superintendent, we had 55 schools. But I told the board, I wanted to be part of my evaluation. I am going to go out and visit every single school during the school year and get into classrooms and talk to teachers and talk to kids and talk to parents. And I was very opposed to any dog and pony show. I used to tell them, if I hear that you're putting on a dog and pony show, I'll be talking to you because I want to see the real day-to-day, what's happening in the classroom, what the struggles are. And that way, when I went back to the district office and we were making, you know, decisions, especially I remember during COVID, which was an extremely challenging chapter of my superintendency, I felt like I had the voices of my kids and our teachers. I had them in my head, and we were able to make relevant and meaningful decisions.
I love that. So we're going to call these the big three. I know there's a lot, and I'm sure the list is, you know, long for you that you want to address. But what do you believe are the three biggest challenges facing students and schools in Fresno County today, and how would you address them?
Well, I think our students. First of all, we have a challenge that we shouldn't have, being the fourth largest economy in the world. And that is that, as I mentioned, more than half of our students aren't reading on grade level. And what it's doing is it's creating a situation where it's affecting their ability to access other academic areas such as math. I mean, if you have a math problem, you can't read the actual problem, then you can't get to the mathematical part of that. It's affecting their access to science and other programs. And ultimately, you know, we have great things like career technical education and dual enrollment, but dual enrollment is essentially like taking a college class during your high school experience. But if you haven't had that foundation, it's affecting all of that. And I've talked to a lot of students. I was out of Fresno State recently. I talked to several students who said it's been a huge struggle for them. So that's one of our biggest challenges. But we also know what has caused it and how to fix it. And I'll just say real quick, what has caused it is that we moved away from the proven method of teaching reading. There's a lot of theories around why we moved away from that. But states around the nation who have moved back to what is now being called the science of reading, which is kind of the phonics method that we are all familiar with. Those states have, you know, their trajectory, instead of limping along 1% a year, it has gone looking at something more like this, you know, a steep trajectory of dramatic results. And here in California, we actually have a new law supporting that. And just this last week, the budget came out from the Governor's Office for Education. There's hundreds of millions of dollars invested in early literacy. So for me, this is a very exciting time to become a superintendent, because this is something I'm very passionate about. But other challenges that kids have are, things like I do feel that social media and the whole, screen addiction, that's something we need to navigate. And now with, the advent of all that's coming our way with AI, I've talked to several experts that we actually have in our valley here, in our county, around AI. And they've talked about the fact that what we need to do is train teachers about how have very strong parameters and policies in place around how AI is going to be allowed into our classrooms, what teachers can and cannot use, and that's a whole conversation we could have. But other challenges I think our kids need help with is soft skills, how to be organized, how to interact with people. These are all things that we can work with our students so that they can be prepared for the careers that they go into, where they're going to be interacting with people on many levels. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that last one. That's my big one in the classroom. We have the 5 norms, which are kind of a modified version of what, how am I losing his name? Parlier, Ivy League. Martin
Mares, yeah.
He had these 5 norms that he did on a Saturday, and I was like, I borrowed them, modified them, and used them for soft skills. There's a new name for it too. They've changed the name. Soft skills are now essential skills or something else, because they didn't want it to feel like it was soft.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I can see the point there.
But I love that that's part of your big 3. So how would you support students who might need additional help? We're talking about the special education students, foster youth, the English learners, students struggling academically or emotionally.
So, as you know, our funding system in California is structured, it's called the local control funding formula. It's structured in such a way that there are dollars allocated to school districts for exactly these supports for our students with all of these different needs that you just mentioned. And every district in Fresno County, except for the one that I was superintendent of, Clovis Unified, actually receives additional dollars called concentration dollars. And the LCAPs that each district puts together, there are some parameters, strict parameters around how those dollars are spent. They must be spent to support these student groups that you just mentioned. But I'll take it a step further. One of the things that I've spent the last 10 months doing is driving around this entire county and talking to the district superintendents. And what I've really come to realize is that because of the way we're funded, ADA, average daily attendance, and they have smaller enrollments as well as having, being funded based on the attendance at school, they really don't have the same capacity as the bigger districts to provide professional development to help with meeting the needs of these students. Or even you could have a school district that has a student with special needs that is only one student in their district has those special needs and needs very specific services. So the county office, it's wonderful, really. They have created what they call shared services. So there are special education classrooms all around the county that are run by the county office to serve students with special needs who are transported from various districts so that we are able to give them the actual services that are specific to their needs. And one of the things I'll also say is when we talk about English learners, I was just talking recently to the superintendent of Kings Canyon Joint Unified. His name is John Campbell. Campbell. He's a good friend of mine. He's a great guy. But he was mentioning to me that over half of the students in Kings Canyon come to school speaking a language other than English. Most of them would speak Spanish, but there are other languages. Over half? Over half, right?
Wow. That's not the number I had in my head.
So let me tell you, a report just came out just the other day that identified out of the entire nation. Now I'm talking about there are many thousands of school districts in the entire nation. Yeah. I think there's 14,000 maybe in the entire nation. About 1,000 school districts. I'm talking about K-12 public school districts in California. They identified this group called the Education Scoreboard. It's a collaboration of Harvard, Stanford, and Dartmouth. It's a very reputable report. they identified 108 districts on the rise in California. And these are districts who are examples of what can be possible, right? 108 districts out of the entire nation, right? So out of those, only 11 were identified in California.
I was going to ask.
And out of those 11, how many do you think are right here in Fresno County, considering we have 58 counties?
We have 3?
We have 2 districts here in Fresno County that are among the 11 that were identified in the state of California, which are among only 108 in the nation.
That's impressive.
Those 2 districts, the districts on the rise, are Sanger Unified and Kings Canyon Joint Unified.
Wow.
And
round of
it's
applause?
So impressive. Yes, that's a huge round of applause. Right.
That's impressive.
So what I'll say is the supports that we are providing, at least we have identified school districts who are doing an awesome job providing the supports that our English learners need and are getting the results that are being recognized by groups such as this group. Yeah.
I'm writing them down. Kings Canyon and Sanger.
And Sanger, yeah, it's pretty impressive.
And you speak with those leaders.
Yeah, well, don't forget, I was a district superintendent, so
you know
I
all these-
worked with all of them. For many years, we would meet together and share strategies and call each other and network about problems and process solutions and things like that. So I know most of the district superintendents very, very well. I've a good relationship
So you
with
have
them.
pretty strong relationships
Yeah.
throughout the.
Yeah.
So all that, if you get elected, all that comes
Well,
to Fresno County?
Yeah, the most important thing that we need in our county superintendent is somebody, I always say, who has integrity, that in terms of you can trust what I say,
Yeah.
and that I'll follow through, and what I say I'll do.
Yeah.
And then the second one is that you have credibility, that you've got a track record that people can look up to and believe in. There's been a lot of misleading information put out about my track record. I was told that might happen, and it is happening by one of my opponent's campaigns. So I've created an entire section on my website called Fact and Fiction.
We're going to add that link to the description.
Please do, because I think it's very disingenuous to provide misleading information to our community about the work, because our community, we're talking about the education of our kids here. So I think it's not like any other politics. We have to be truthful to our community. I'm very proud of my track record, and it's mainly proud because it's my educational team who are responsible for that under my leadership. But as I said, integrity and credibility are very important. And, if I become the county superintendent of schools, I know that all my former colleagues who are now out there as district superintendents, they can pick up the phone and say, hey, Eimear, I'd love to run this by you, or I have a problem, I'm wondering, could I get your lens on it? Or I have an idea and I'm thinking this is something we could all talk about. So we have those kind of relationships, and that's so critical, because in the absence of integrity and credibility, do you know that district superintendents, they can never talk to the county superintendent if they don't choose. They can opt, as some do actually, not to attend the county meetings. As long as their budget is getting approved and their LCAP is approved, they can opt to literally be disengaged from the county office of ed.
Is that a common practice in Fresno County, just not to attend?
Well, in my travels, there are some district superintendents who have sought support from Tulare County Office of Ed, or who feel that the support they need is not in a timely manner. And I was out one day, it was a foggy day, and one of the district superintendents said, our internet is down intermittently all day because of the fog. And I said, wow, again, the 4th largest economy in the world and your internet is down? And he said, I've been waiting 6 months to get help from the county office. So, they're the kinds of things that, we joke in the field of education, if the photocopier is not working, you get it fixed, because that can have a ripple effect. So we can't have things like that happening. We need to get in. And I definitely feel that the district superintendents, that they will value me getting out of my car and driving down and sitting with them and reviewing, the systems they have in place and helping them put sustainable systems. Because guys, what happens a lot in California is we get these great grants, like we are now with the Golden State Literacy Plan. There's hundreds of millions of dollars for coaching teachers and, bringing, adopting, phonics-driven instruction materials and all those kinds of things. But if we don't put systems in place, those grant dollars are gone. I believe it's September 2029. We will have the usual spike and drop. We all go back to doing things the way we did before. And I know that our district superintendents want to use this opportunity. We're in a moment of opportunity. I've been calling it a historic moment, but a big article came out last week calling it from Stanford an inflection point in the history of California. This article that came out from Stanford last week mentioned that this is a group that this is the third big report they've put out in the last 20 years. The first two have resulted in significant educational reform in California. One was the LCFF. The second was transitional kindergarten. And what they said is that the biggest issue in California right now is that we have identified who the successful districts are. Like I just mentioned, Kings Canyon, Sanger Unified. We know Clovis Unified has been consistently successful. But the problem is we have been failing to scale that up to the county level and then ultimately to the state level. And they identified the reason for that. I wish I had the article with me because I would quote it, but I'm going to paraphrase it. But they said, because there's county offices of education vary greatly in the level of support that they can offer the district superintendents. And so therefore, we're not able to scale it up. And I've been saying from the beginning of my campaign, this race boils down to scale and accountability. We need somebody who has led at the scale that's needed to take this district or this county to the next level. Having led, Clovis was the second largest district in the county, 45,000 students, about 7,500 employees. And I was a very successful superintendent. I received very positive evaluations every year, and I was able to deliver the results that were put forth before me by my governing board. So I'm the only candidate in this race who's actually been a district superintendent, and this position is designed to support and advise and bring guidance to district superintendents. So such an advantage to have actually served in that role, not once but twice already.
Robert, can I share? One of the things that I've learned and appreciate of Dr. O'Brien throughout the years is she's very relational, right? And I tell people have their own misconception about Clovis Unified, but you cannot run a school district of that magnitude with that success without the challenges that come with it and the accountability. I mean, it's like high level. I mean, our community expects, not to say other communities don't, but in Clovis Unified, you got to bring your A game, right? And it comes with a lot of pressure, right? And it comes with a lot of outcomes need to be delivered. And I tell people, you cannot have those type of outcomes without leaders that know what they're doing and are able to actually perform. And that comes with a lot of pressure. And I've seen her under the gun several times. And my biggest compliment to Dr. O'Brien has been her relationships. Sometimes we got to pull her from conversations because she's establishing. And also, she's going to be in a position where she could share all those connections, nonprofit, for-profit, faith-based, business. I mean, you name it, she has experience with it. And it's important for her to have those networks, but super important to our superintendents because these students in the county, they're all our kids. They're ours. Yeah. And now she gets to have an opportunity to say, I'm going to take all those skills and I'm going to put them out. And now we all win, not just one district or Central or Clovis. But that's the part that I'm super excited about because we just don't know what she could bring unless you work side by side with her.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to go a little bit off script here because I want to address a term, transparency. What role do you think that needs to play for a superintendent of schools?
Well, Saul knows this very well because I'm all about transparency. You know, we have a lot of data in education, as you know, as both of you know, being educators. And, you know, there's been times in my career where, wow, those numbers are hard to swallow sometimes. I remember when I was overseeing Pinedale Elementary School, the whole community came in and they were very upset with our numbers. And they gave me numbers I didn't even know exist. Like, here's the number of students that didn't ever graduate from Clovis West. They graduated from the alternative school. And I remember saying, give me all the numbers. Because you can't even begin, Rob, to fix a problem if we're not open and honest about the numbers. And that's why I've been very, I don't want to say distressed about the amount of misleading information that's been put out in this campaign.
Can you give us an example of some misleading information?
Well, you know, I would just say one of my opponents has, if I told you that our kids were at 20% proficiency and you're a teacher and we increased it to 40% proficiency, we would say we increased it by 20 percentage points. In other words, 20 more kids per 100 are proficient. But you could also say we went up by 100%. And the state of California does not report data like that. The state dashboard doesn't report data like that. And if you look it up, they will clearly tell you that they don't do that because it is misleading to our community and because we believe in being transparent with our community, but also communication data in a way that is clear and meaningful. So, you know, one of my opponents has said, you know, our math scores went up by, 30%. Well, what are we talking about? What test? What year? You went from what percentage point to what percentage point? It's so intentionally misleading. And as I had a statistician go into that, they found out that, yeah, it's not quite true. And so that kind of mathematics has also been used to discredit my reputation. You know, during my tenure, we navigated the COVID pandemic. And for an entire year, we had exactly half. We had 44,000 students that year. 22,000 of them stayed at home and had instruction they missed in-person instruction. And yet, during my tenure, we went down overall in language arts we went down by 3.51 percentage points in language arts, and we went down by 5.56 percentage points in math. And we saw that as a win because compared to other districts and counties and, you know, around the state, like Clovis Unified did incredibly well. And I put all of this is on my website, eimearforresults.com. I have it all in there. I actually provide an easy step-by-step guide how you can verify the results on the state website because, as you know, the CDE website, once you know steps 1, 2, and 3, you realize it's actually quite easy to navigate. So I want the community to be able to go in and verify for themselves. So transparency is very, very important. A, to have the courage to look at the data, and B, then to have the courage to communicate it and say, okay, this is where we're at, and then come up with a plan. I always say my plan starts out the same. I listen, I collaborate, and then I follow it through with action. Because as we always say, Dr. Salinas and I always say, if you're just talking about it and collaborating about it, then you're just having a conversation. If we don't have action, and he has held me accountable on numerous occasions, because we have a relationship where I say to him, if you don't see me taking action, you hold me accountable. And I always say that to all of my team. We all need to hold each other accountable for our actions. Otherwise, as I often say, it's kumbaya. I say that.
I feel good.
We're on the COVID. So I shared a little bit with this, Rob, before. I got sick during COVID. I shared that. And the OG COVID, the first year COVID, the first summer COVID.
Yeah.
And she was my superintendent. And this is the part where I'm going to kind of stray us away a little bit to Eimear the person, because I don't think that gets discussed enough. Mm-hmm. We'll sit here all day long talking about all the stuff that she could bring, has done, her vision, but the person. This woman called me multiple times when I was out of the hospital. How are you?
Oh, you were hospital COVID.
I was hospitalized,
sick.
brother. COVID, OG COVID. They didn't have a cure yet, right? So I spent 6 days in the hospital. I was getting text messages. But I'm one of 7,500 employees. Superintendent's calling me, texting me, how are you? I mean, nonstop. How's your son? How's your wife? Do you need anything? I'm like, I'm one. I don't know what the math is, but I'm one of 7,500. And for me, I'm like, man, this is the type of leader she is. And I'm not putting blame on anybody of my colleagues, but very limited phone calls came through and text messages. So I just want to thank you for being Eimear the person, because that counts and that matters.
It goes a long way.
And for me, people think, oh, you're just. I'm supporting Eimear because of the person she is. It just so happens she brings the skills that makes it that much more special. But on this podcast, I'm going to say thank you, because that is not common in other structures. For the head leader call you during crisis. Now, that was a crisis for our school districts, and she would call, never forgot about me, uplifted me, motivated me, and made sure I was okay. So that Eimear is the person. So thank you, Eimear.
Thank you. Yeah. You know, I often get criticized because Clovis Unified doesn't have, what we would call a traditional union. And what I often say is, in the absence of that and whatever the teachers decide in terms of how they want to be represented, to me, it's all about how you treat people. Because, guys, the number one most important factor for any of our work, whether it's in the classroom, it's the teacher, but in like the kind of position that Dr. Salinas is in, it's promoting community engagement for us and cultural proficiency. We're working with people, and we cannot achieve anything without the goodwill of our people. And, I know you asked about accountability. I always say that accountability is important, but there's something way more important than accountability. Because accountability is when somebody feels they're accountable to you. But when you go past that and you go to ownership, people have discovered their own purpose and they're accountable to themselves. So I always strive for something bigger than accountability, and that is ownership. Because when you walk out the door, Rob and Jim, if you don't want people just to go back to doing things the way they always did it, which is the comfortable place, if you've had a conversation and you say to them, what about if we try it this way? Have you ever imagined, do you believe we could do this? If you walk out the door and they say to themselves, actually, she's right, we could do this. They start building their own purpose, and then you're into ownership. They're doing it because they believe in it, right? Not because I believe in it. So I always talk about ownership when people bring up accountability.
That's way more powerful as a follower, right? We have leaders. I feel like whenever I own something, a project, whatever it is, I'm going to go the extra mile.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
So here's a big one for me personally. Jim knows about this. I have the mental health wristband. We know the role that COVID played. And so I just want to jump ahead to this one, make sure we get it in. How would you approach school safety, student mental health, and student well-being throughout the county?
So it's one of the subjects that I have been most concerned about during my entire superintendency. I will just tell you, when you're a superintendent or even when you're a principal of a school, there is never a morning that you don't wake up thinking about student safety, because it is just, when parents send their kids to school, that's the thing they are most concerned. We love that they're learning English and math, but we want them to be safe. What I will say is the county office can have, they do have safety symposiums and talk about the latest safety equipment. But what I've always said is what matters most are the adults on campus, that they know and that our students know how to respond without hesitation in an emergency. And the only way you can do that is to have multiple drills and practices to make sure the cameras are pointed the right way, make sure the adults know what to do and the kids know what to do. And that's something that I will be talking a lot with superintendents as our county superintendents, saying we can put on all the symposia in the world, but you have to follow through and make sure your people know what they're doing. And when it comes to mental health, I used to always say our kids, coming out of COVID was hard to watch. We had so many problems. This is what happened, actually. I remember all of us district superintendents being down with Jim Uvino, who was the superintendent at the time, and we were really upset for our kids. They were so hurting and in such dire straits after. Kids were really, it was critical, and we were sitting around the table going, we have to think outside the box. And one of the things we said was the Department of Public Health was getting millions of dollars from the state, but we were saying, but how is that being transferred out to the 350 schools around the county, all the way out to Biola and Carruthers and all the way up to Big Creek? And we sat around that table, we said, what if the money that comes from the state, instead of it going to the Department of Public Health, what if it came to the county office instead? And we managed it, and we got a clinician at every single school so that kids didn't have to travel to, a location to get mental health, that there was a clinician on every campus. And we knew it was what they call a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? BHAG, as we used to call them. But we said to Jim Yavino, who spent a lot of time driving up and down to Sacramento, I know he was there every single month because he used to call me a lot on the way back. And we said, let's just see what can happen. And do you know, he came back a few months later and told us, we got the money. We're doing that. And do you know that happened? That the money that they transferred, it was a partnership between Dewan Utrecht, who used to be in the Department of Behavioral Health, that we had that. And he said, all I need is an office at every one of your schools. And we said, done, we can do that. And then we went a step further and we created these wellness centers so that families could come in the evenings. And that was then subsidized through all these funding. And in fact, that's where All for Youth was born. That's literally how it was born. And we now have 12 or maybe now 13 wellness centers all over the county. They're on district property.
Right there.
So yeah, it's action.
That's huge.
It's action. Like Dr. Salinas was saying, we can talk about what actions are we taking, because too many times we don't follow through with action. And that's where a county superintendent, Rob, can have a powerful impact. And it's a great example of the district superintendent saying, this is a problem, us all putting our heads together and saying, what if, and imagining what we could do if we could think outside the box. And I don't know if other counties do that, but that's a huge resource to Fresno County that came from everybody just putting their heads together, and the county superintendent having the relationships up in Sacramento, because he was up and down every month.
And you were
People
a part
listened.
of all this.
Well, I was a part of it. I was so proud to be associated with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to give you enough time for this one because I feel like this would be great. Why do you believe you are the right person to serve as our Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, and what would success look like at the end of your term?
I get emotional talking about this because I feel we have normalized lack of excellence in this county, and it bothers me. I genuinely feel very sad for our kids, and I did a video recently and I said, Fresno County, when are we going to start believing in ourselves so that our kids can start believing in themselves? So we as the adults, we need a leader who believes that it can be done. And I've talked about Mississippi, the poorest state in America with one of the lowest public funding allocations, going from the bottom of the nation to the top. My God, if they can do it, why can't we? And I just mentioned the 2 districts in our county that have been identified as 2 out of 108 across the nation. We're already doing it, Rob. We're doing it. But we need a leader who has the leadership skills, the relational skills that Dr. Salinas talked about, and has an understanding how to scale something up. Because I did it as a district superintendent in what is one of the consistently most successful districts in the county. And the reason for that is because people before me put sustainable systems in place. I want to help our district superintendents across the county to put those sustainable systems in place so we can get there and then stay there. And it's not going to look like Clovis. I'm not trying to Clovisize the entire county, because every district is going to look different. Every district has different needs and different cultures. What's right for Kingsburg is not going to be right for Pine Ridge. It's not going to be right for Kerman, right? Or Clovis or Fresno Unified. So I'm the only candidate, I believe, I honestly believe this, that I am the only candidate who has the instructional leadership experience and who has led an actual district. Now, it's a whole different thing, Rob, to go every July into a room with 7 elected officials and to be held accountable for all the goals that you all set out the previous July. And then to go back out to your 7,500 employees and say, here's how we're going to achieve these goals. And then go back in the next year and have achieved them, right? So I did that. And I know that you can't get a whip in your hand and say, everybody, thou shalt do this. It's built on the relationships that Dr. Salinas was talking about. It's built on the trust. It's built on credibility and integrity. It's built on people saying, gosh, if Eimear believes in it, I'm going to believe in it. And us sitting down saying, we can do this, and putting a plan in place, but a plan that we know can work, right? So I guess, like I said, I get emotional thinking about the fact that we're at this historic moment. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't want us to get left behind and all those dollars go to the Bay Area and LA, which I've seen happen over and over again. I want to make sure that our kids don't get left behind. And honestly, I was, it's a lot to run an election, and I knew that people would make up stuff about me. They tried to discredit my track record. And I still put myself into this vulnerable place. And you know why? It's because I found myself saying, I'm doing it for the kids. That's why I'm doing it. And I'm giving it my very best. And I really hope that I get this opportunity, because we will be the hub of success in California. People will be saying, look at Fresno County, look at what they did. And it won't take that long. It'll be a quick turnaround. I'm hoping to do it in the 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to hold myself accountable to it. I'll put numbers out and I'll make sure that we get there.
I like
I
that
feel very
transparency.
confident. Yeah.
One thing I tell folks all the time is Dr. O'Brien's not looking for a promotion. She retired off of a superintendent salary in Cal Stirs. We would be, what are we doing? Let's go hang out, right? But she's willing to come back into the grind from retirement. And I'm thinking, you're actually doing us a favor, right? We're not taking a chance on you. You're taking a chance on us. And I tell people, I'm like, do you know what she retired as, the salary-wise, and what she's probably making or can make off of Cal Stirs? Why would you want to come back? And I even asked her that. And bottom line was that she shared it, but she cares. So she's putting herself aside to say, I'm going to go back into the system that's very complicated because I care enough because our students are suffering. And for me, that goes back to Eimear the person, Dr. O'Brien the person. Like, we should look at it differently. We should say, thank you for your willingness to come back, because you paid your dues. You had your time. You did what you had to do. And we thank you. We had a party for you. But now you're like, hey, you want to come back? So it's just different perspective I want people to realize. It's depending how you look at it.
Was there like a straw that broke the camel's back in terms of saying, that's it, I got to get back in the game?
Well, I'll tell you, when I retired, I retired for personal reasons. My family needed me, and my family is important to me, and
Yes.
I knew that I didn't want to let them down. But I love, like I started out the conversation, I love kids and I love seeing kids learn. And I think if you're right, what triggered me most was the idea of any little kid sitting now in 4th grade. We had 15,000 kids took the 3rd grade reading test last in 2025 in May, June, right? Of the 15,000, 8,550 something didn't make standard, right? So now they're all sitting in 4th grade and they're trying to navigate math and science. And like, I just know if they were my kids, I'm just like any other parent. All our parents want our kids to be successful. And I think it's like a sense of caring about the kids, but also a sense of frustration that why does it doesn't have to be this way. I want, we have a lot of teachers out there who are frustrated, and they're frustrated because I get it. There's a lot of behavioral problems because of all sorts of arising out of COVID and screen addiction and that. But a lot of it is because our teachers are not being trained in the science of reading, and they're not feeling confident about teaching reading. So when we say 8,550 kids didn't pass, it's not because the kids aren't smart, guys. That is not why. It's because our system has let them down. Our system has let down teachers by not training them accordingly. And I've talked to President Sandoval of Fresno State about it. And I've told him if I do become the county superintendent, we're going to have a conversation about that. But even in the Golden State Literacy Plan, there are provisions to train all these teachers, job-embedded coaching, which is what Mississippi did, but also training the teachers in the what we call the teacher preparation programs at FPU and Fresno State and National. So that, and I want to be involved in that because I want us to have some sort of accreditation that Fresno County has, that every teacher can not that it's a gotcha, but every teacher can avail of so that they feel confident when they go out. And I also want to make sure that every teacher in the classroom right now gets the training. It's expensive. I want to make sure we access those dollars. We get every grant that we can get. And those district superintendents out there, they're wearing multiple hats. They are the transportation person. They are the special education person. I want to say, you focus on that. Let me take that burden from you at the county office. I'm going to make sure we don't miss a single deadline. I'm going to surround myself with a team of experts, and we're going to make sure we get those dollars so that we can train your teachers. Because we're losing teachers in the profession. Teachers are feeling more and more disengaged because of just a lot of challenges. That also doesn't need to be that way. There's a cycle of dysfunction I see, that if teachers felt more confident about teaching reading, then kids were learning, then kids want to be in school. We wouldn't have chronic absenteeism. We wouldn't have kids feeling more prone to misbehavior because they're just frustrated about school. It's just the cycle that I want to break. And that's really what I'm all about. And I know, and here's the thing, I know we can get there. And sometimes I wonder, am I the only one who believes in it this much? But I went to a leadership forum up in Sacramento last week. It was for the Golden State Literacy Plan. And guys, they showed a map of California and all the county offices of ed that are leading the charge for science of reading, and Fresno wasn't on there, and that disappointed me. I was the only person from Fresno up there, and I felt like there's just no momentum right now, and I don't really know why that is. All I can say is there isn't. They weren't able to get a cohort of teachers going last year. There just wasn't interest, right? I can tell you, by golly, if I become the county superintendent, I'll generate interest. I'm already generating interest. All I hear people talking about lately is science of reading. And I know it's because I've brought it up time and time again.
Wow. Man. Okay. Anything else you'd like Fresno County family, students, educators, voters to know about your candidacy?
Well, I would say parents and educators, I would say, I know that you want the best for your kids. I know you believe in your kids, and you look at your kids and you know that they want to be successful. Is there a kid in our county that doesn't want to be successful? No. Is there a teacher in our county that doesn't want every kid in their class reading and being successful? No. And is there a district superintendent who wants to sit in that evaluation with their governing board and say, I didn't achieve the goals that we set forward? Everybody wants to be successful. I just believe that if we all come together, and I'm talking about the greater community, I'm talking about the mayors of the cities, I'm talking about the presidents of the colleges, I want to get everybody on board. And I really believe if we work together, and like Dr. Selena says, I have a lot of connections in this county because of the role I played. And I know that we can do it. Like I said, if Mississippi can do it, if Kings Canyon and Sanger are doing it enough to be recognized, as two of the districts in the entire state, out of 11 in the entire state, 2 in our own county, if Clovis Unified can have systems that carry them through decades of success, I know we can do it because it's being done. We just need a leader in there who believes in it passionately and is going to make sure that we all start believing and have the systems and the resources and the support to do it.
All right.
Rob, can I say something real quick?
Yes.
I have something for Dr. O'Brien. You were there on Friday at the Association of Mexican American. There was like over 300 educators and students there. there's this momentum, right? Like, and there's also this accountability and exposure of like what's happening with our brown kids or Latino kids. You know, Central Valley is pretty much Latino, 65, 70%. People ask me all the time, like, well, what does she know about being Latino or Latina? And I said, look, I don't vote and support on racial lines. I support for the best candidate. But last night, I was at Fresno State at the Latino Chicano Commencement, the largest celebration in the United States. And there was like 1,200, 1,300 Chicano Latino students graduating. And I did a little video on this, and I said, what do they all have in common? And that answer was K-12. They've all gone through our K-12 system. Now, Fresno State does a phenomenal job making sure when you get admitted, you stay, you graduate their supports. But how do our students here in the Central Valley have access to that? So I'm not saying you have to go, but you should be able to have the option to go.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, we need the strong leadership. Our Latino students need strong leadership. I've gone to that commencement 4 times, right? And I believe in Dr. O'Brien's willingness. I mean, she's all in. There's no distraction with this woman. She's going to be all in. She's all in. She's going to put it out there. But I'm going to give her a gift. So I was able to participate 4 times, and this is the confidence that I have. Right? You know me, like there's no. I'm too old to like care about much, right? I was like, hey, it is what it is. But I participated in this event 4 times. So I'm going to give her a gift, which is one of my sashes. So this is one of my sashes, and it's for her to remember that one is all our students matter. This is the sash that, because I represented Mexico and my family ancestry, but I want Dr. O'Brien to have this, and that's one of my sashes because that's the confidence I have in this woman and representing not just Latino students, all students, but she also knows, hey, they matter, they all matter. But I have confidence into you, and this is going to be a representation that you're going to represent all our people. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you
you.
very much. Dr.
I won't
Eimear
let you down.
O'Brien, Dr.
See the
Saul
data.
Salinas, thank you both for being here today. We wish you so much luck in this upcoming election, and would definitely like to revisit after the election, no matter where the chips fall.
Right.
And just want to hear more about your ideas, because I've written down so many notes today on where it's working. I see that you have a pulse on where it's working and what we need to do and apply to make it work here. So this is a woman with a plan. I love it. Thank you for coming on RobLive. So from James Chance, Robbie Scarlo Jr., Eimear O'Brien, and Dr. Saul Salinas, we want to say thank you guys for watching, and love, peace, chicken grease. We out.